Welcome to the Genius Way Show with your host, Ben Hummel. The aim of this show is to provide education, encouragement, and insights for people who are on their own personal development journeys. As a psychotherapist, teacher, author, and creator of the Genius Way process, Ben will focus on identifying common challenges to living a purposeful life, and will share valuable psychological and spiritual tools to help you make healthy and empowering life changes. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hey friends, welcome to the Genius Way Show. I'm your host, Ben Hummel. It's great to be with you here again this week. And the topic this week is something that's really important and near and dear to my heart. I work with tons of clients and coaching clients on this issue, and it's the issue of personal boundaries. I personally think that personal boundaries should be taught as a separate class, starting way back in kindergarten, all through high school. But that's another topic for another day and another show. Today, we're going to be talking about the concept of sovereign space. Now, I'm not talking about the video game sovereign space. I'm talking about a territory in our physical, mental, emotional, and psychic space personally that is not ruled by anybody else. So a sovereign state basically means a country that is under its own rule. And so when you're talking about personal boundaries, the concept of sovereign space is an important one, where we get to say what happens in our own space. So what is our own space? Before we get into that, what is it? One of the coolest things that I ever experienced in my early days in my own therapy is when my therapist, where we were talking about boundaries, and I was having some issues around personal boundaries at the time, and she kind of said, "Get up." She pulled my chair into the middle of the room in the therapy office. She went to a drawer and got out this big, long piece of yellow rope. And she had me sit down in the chair, and in a circle, like 10 feet around the chair, she put this rope, like a boundary. And she said, "Look, all this space is yours. You inhabit all of this space." And had me kind of sit there and feel myself within that space as it was my own. It was my own to do with what I wished. And in a way, that was kind of a real cool turning point for me, where I saw, I'm allowed to have all this spaciousness around me, from my body, 5 feet out around me on all sides, to kind of, I don't want to say control, but that is, again, my sovereign space. It belongs to me. And I have the choice to keep people and things and energies in or out of it as I wish. So that happened to me. And so let's talk about that for you. Do you ever have a problem with holding boundaries? Do you have a problem with allowing people more access to you on any different level than you would like? That feels comfortable. Do you feel possibly like people are deserving of that space in you? If that's the case, sovereign space is going to be a very, very important thing for you to get your head wrapped around, in terms of being able to create that for yourself, so that at any time your physical, emotional, and energetic bodies are safe from people kind of tapping out your energy for you. So let's talk about this for a second. What is it that we need to have a boundary for? Why are they important? So first of all, nobody gets to do anything to our bodies that we don't want them to do. So in other words, everyone has the right to keep people out of their physical space. And that means you can't touch me. There are laws against it. You're not allowed to do that. And I can keep you away, and sometimes we'll push somebody away, we'll leave, whatever. But let's say there's nobody actively touching you or trying to grab your physical body, right? And let's say you're in a room and there are people there who are, let's say you're in like a business negotiation where There are people who are trying to get the most out of you, get the highest price out of you for your house or for whatever. They're trying to do some kind of manipulation to get the best for them at your expense. Okay, so I want you to picture that around you, like in that exercise I did in my therapy, around you is an energetic field that is you, just as much as your body is. Your energy doesn't exist just inside your body. It's out here too. It's all in this space. And you can see this as your sovereign space, this kind of 5-foot bubble around your body of energy. This is you. I remember many years ago reading one of my first books. It was like a book on channeling, a book that I read about like kind of metaphysical things. And it was by this, it was called Seth Speaks. And they were asking Seth about this field of energy. And Seth says something like, yeah, your body is embedded in it right now as we speak. And that really flipped my mind around, like, what? And so the idea is that our energetic body is not just the same size as this. Our physical body is within our energy, within our energetic body, our energetic field. And that's exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to holding strong personal boundaries. It has to start there, where you know I have space around me that also belongs to me. Now, yes, if you're on a crowded subway and you're kind of jumping up next to, kind of jostling next to a bunch of people and really packed in there, your energetic bodies are going to kind of, align and kind of push against each other and so forth. And, that's not really the boundary that I'm talking about. But this whole energetic field around us, it belongs to us, and we're allowed to keep it safe, and we're allowed to keep ourselves safe within it. So, so we start there at the physical and with the energetic around it. And we go in one layer, and then there's kind of like a mental / emotional state that we live in. There's kind of a mental emotional self that some people are very fond of trespassing on. And again, if you're a real sensitive person, maybe you've had a trouble holding boundaries, you're not going to know what I'm talking about. There's a feeling that comes where people are mentally like looking for a weakness in you, looking for a way that they can kind of get in there and manipulate you in a certain way, whether it's like through emotional abuse or some kind of like technique that they use, certainly gaslighting, to get in there and try to have us doubt our own sense of reality, have us doubt our own sense of self. And so the boundary around that is to know I've got this energetic body, I've got this physical body, I've got this emotional body within the physical body, and my sovereign space starts way out there. So if you're trying to kind of do a mind meld with me and do some manipulation, I'm stopping you way out there. I become aware of this feeling. Now, have you ever had the feeling that somebody it feels like almost like a vampire energy, where people are kind of sucking your energy out of you and you kind of feel exhausted when you're done with these people? Yeah. So trust that feeling. That feeling's not there for no reason. Trust that there's something to that, and that you indeed need to protect yourself when it comes to taking care of that emotional body. And again, it starts out there with your energetic body. Okay, so we've gone from the energetic body, the physical body, the emotional body. Then within that even is a spiritual realm where some people like to get in there and try to mess with you on that level. And that's kind of like, I've known a lot of people who have been working with shaman and so forth and doing different plant medicines that have been kind of attacked on that level too. And so there's the boundary that we're talking about creating, the emotional, psychological, physical, and energetic boundaries that I'm talking about creating in our sovereign space is protective of all those layers. So the first thing about sovereign space is that you have it if you will exercise it. You have it, it belongs to you, and everyone has their own. But we need to know how to exercise it, how to make sure that we're using it and kind of resourcing it to make it nice and strong. And this doesn't keep people out. It keeps people from hurting us. We're totally allowed to feel and experience people and enjoy their company and so forth. But what it does, it keeps us safe without cloistering us away. It keeps us safe without having to hide, right? So along with the idea of sovereign space is the idea that you're supposed to be healthy in this way. And personal boundaries are not just a nice idea. They're completely and totally necessary. And if your personal boundaries within your sovereign space there, if they are leaky, or if they are weak, or if they haven't been strengthened to the extent that they're protecting you, there's some work that needs to be done there. And that's why I'm doing this particular show today, because I guarantee you, most of us, I would say 90% of us, from time to time, allow others to cross our personal boundaries simply because we don't know that we're supposed to have one there. We don't know how to keep ourselves safe, what is appropriate or not appropriate, what is a violation of our personal space and what is not, right? So if you ever want to know what a violation feels like, get into a relationship with a narcissist or somebody that has borderline personality disorder. With those two personality disorders, they feel that it is their right to step over your boundary, right? And it's really, again, I'm not suggesting you go out and find a narcissist, but man, it is hard to hold personal boundaries with either a narcissist or people on borderline personality disorder. Very, very, very difficult, because again, they feel like it's their entitlement to you to have access to that inner part of you. And the fact is, if you're holding sovereign space, you do not have to grant access to anybody who doesn't feel safe. And that is, again, that's kind of like a basic right of our being, that we are sovereign in our holding space for ourselves, not encroaching on others, but we're sovereign, meaning there is no other authority but us to keep us safe and in a safe kind of container within ourselves and around ourselves. It is our job, our duty, and our right to keep that personal boundary very, very intact so that you have a healthy self out there navigating the world. Okay, that's everybody's right. And unfortunately, it's just not taught very well. And it's not made a priority. It's not being made a priority. Certainly in schools, there's a few little classes about it. But man, the trauma that I see day in and day out in my therapy practice, most of it comes from not knowing when people are crossing our boundaries, not knowing that it's okay to keep ourselves safe, and not knowing how to create that sovereign space. So I'm going to play a video for you now, a little bit more about this topic, sovereign space, your own territory here, what it consists of. And when we come back, I'm going to go a little bit deeper into this in another category of what it means to create personal boundaries that are healthy and that can strengthen this sovereign, safe place. I'll see you on the other side.
Have you ever pondered the invisible lines that divide us? Not the borders on a map, but the ones we each carry within ourselves. Our personal boundaries, our sovereign space. Consider, if you will, the tale of a young woman named Ava. Ava was a warm and friendly individual, always eager to help and please those around her. However, Her eagerness to be liked often led to others taking advantage of her kindness, encroaching on her sovereign space. Her boss would often pile on extra work, knowing that Ava would never say no. Her friends would ask for favors, regardless of how inconvenient it might be for her. Even her family would make demands on her time and energy without considering her needs. Ava felt overwhelmed, drained, and lost. She had been so focused on others that she had lost sight of herself. One day, Ava came across the concept of sovereign space. The idea resonated with her. She realized that she had been allowing others to invade her personal boundaries, her sovereign space. It was time to reclaim it. Ava started saying no to requests that were unreasonable or inconvenient. She began to prioritize her own needs and wants. She started setting boundaries, defining her sovereign space. It wasn't easy. People were taken aback. Some were even upset. But Ava stood her ground. Over time, Ava found that she was happier, less stressed, and more in touch with herself. She had reclaimed her sovereign space, and in doing so, she had rediscovered herself. Ava's story serves as an illustration of the importance of maintaining our personal boundaries, our sovereign space. It's a concept that is often overlooked, but it is crucial for our well-being. Without clear boundaries, we risk losing ourselves in the expectations and demands of others. We become disconnected from our own needs and wants. Our sovereign space becomes invaded, and we feel overwhelmed and drained, much like Ava did. Setting boundaries and maintaining our sovereign space allows us to honor our own identity. It enables us to prioritize our needs and wants, to say no when necessary, and to stand our ground. It may not always be easy, and it may not always be well received, but it is essential for our well-being. In conclusion, the concept of sovereign space and personal boundaries is a vital aspect of self-care and self-respect. It is about setting limits, honoring our own identity, and valuing our own needs and wants. It is about maintaining our sovereign space, even within a social setting. So remember Ava's story and ask yourself, have you defined your sovereign space? And more importantly, are you maintaining it? Because, in the end, your sovereign space is your fortress, your sanctuary, where you are the ruler and no one else.
So I'm going to make a general assumption here, and forgive me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to assume that you, since you are watching this show and since you're kind of like somebody that's interested in personal development, I'm going to assume that you have a certain amount of sensitivity. And maybe even a lot of sensitivity. Maybe you're even an HSP, a highly sensitive person. And a lot of people in that category get into trouble in terms of allowing people to trespass on their sovereign space, not knowing that I can still be sensitive without letting people in. I don't have to put up a wall, because my sovereign space is permeable for the people that I deem safe to let in, right? So this assumption of you being a sensitive, I hope I can talk to that part of you and kind of normalize the fact that some people just are born with a deeper sensitivity. Some people learn it through trauma and then hopefully get to use it in a better way, a more healthy way. But regardless, if you have a certain level of sensitivity and you struggle with personal boundaries sometimes, this is the show for you. This is really important to learn this stuff, okay? Not only the fact that you're allowed to have it and that you need to have it, but how to keep them, how to keep and develop and maintain strong personal boundaries. All right, so if you are in fact sensitive, there is something that you kind of really have to know about that sensitivity, and that is your sensitivity is not weakness. It's not even vulnerability. A lot of people transpose those two words, vulnerable and sensitive. They're not the same thing. Sensitivity is a strength. Sensitivity is a gift. And if you can maintain your sensitivity through all this crap that happens to us during our lives, all the heartbreaks and all of the, betrayals and all of the terrible things, if you can maintain your sensitivity, that shows an amazing strength that you haven't shut your heart off, right? And again, with all the boundary crossings that inevitably happen when we don't know how to set our strong personal boundaries, right? That means your sensitivity is one of the strongest things in you, and you want to get to a point where your sensitivity is actually your greatest strength. Okay? Vulnerability is not the same as sensitivity. Okay? So when we feel vulnerable and we don't have boundaries up, then guess what happens? We get hurt. There's a violation of our sovereign space. But when you're sensitive and you have personal boundaries, you get to feel all of what life offers us to feel. You get to experience everything in a very deep and visceral way. And that's kind of how we want to live, isn't it? That's really how everybody should be living. In other words, I'm feeling every moment of my life, good, bad, and ugly, and I am here to experience it all without being hurt. Okay? So if you're sensitive, you absolutely need strong, personal, healthy boundaries. Okay? So whenever I think about this in terms of sovereign space, personal boundaries, I always think of this Carole King song. You Got a Friend. James Taylor does a version of it, beautiful version. And the bridge kind of goes, people can be so cold. They'll hurt you and desert you, and they'll take your soul if you let them. But don't you let them. Right? I love that, because you don't have to let people do that. You don't have to let people trespass on something in you that is sacred. You know, again, if you have maintained this sensitive nature, to me, that's a sacred thing. You know, I certainly have that. I've always had that. And when I was a kid, a boy growing up in New Jersey, that was not a great thing to have. You know, I always had to kind of dumb that part of me down to be with my friends. Ben, you're too deep. You take everything so personally. I was a sensitive person. I still am. And that doesn't mean that I have weakness or whatever. It means that I love to feel what life feels like in all of its permutations and all of its experiences. So I get it. If you're a sensitive person, I totally get it. And there's certain work and certain experiences that only you can have as this sensitive. But we have to get over the hump of our sensitivity being a cause of hurt for us because we don't understand how important boundaries are. So the more sensitive you are, the more boundaries you have to have. So one of the little tools that I give my clients to use when they have really, really bad personal boundaries is the ability to say no. And so let's say you're a people pleaser. Let's say, you know, whenever somebody comes up to you and they're like, hey, you want to go and do this? Or, you know, can you do this for me? Or you have that friend that's always asking you to do a favor for them, and it kind of, you don't ever want to say no. If you're one of those guys, you know, the first thing you got to learn to do is to be able to initially say no. And then you give yourself a couple beats and you say, yeah, okay, I'll think about it. But instead of just saying yes against your own, you know, sensitivities, it's important to know how to say no. Just flat out no. That's your first answer. You want to do this? Can you do this for me? Do you want one of these? No. Because what that's going to do is going to give you some time. That initial no to whatever that request is, or that you know, favor they're asking, or whatever that is, that initial no builds in time for you to kind of collect your sensitive self, collect yourself, and actually feel like, well, do I want to do this or not? It gives me time. So it's not really a no. It's just like, it's a pause. Let me think about it, you know? And the no is very, very powerful because it kind of shuts the door on any of that kind of vampire-ish energy that's kind of trying to get you to do something you're not really sure if you want to do or not. So that's a good tool. Just say no. You can change your mind later, but the no builds in a pause so that you can collect yourself and kind of feel your way into whether this is a good idea for me or not, whether I really want to do this or not, right? Another thing is when you are, if you work with people or when you're sensitive and you're kind of dealing with other people's energy, one of the ways that we understand people is that we empathize. And if you're a sensitive person, you probably have a deep sense of empathy. And that means you kind of, place yourself in that other person's circumstance in order to understand what they're experiencing, what they're feeling, what they're describing. And that can be dangerous. Over empathizing can be dangerous if you don't have strong boundaries, because you're literally kind of trying on their clothes, trying on their energy, trying on their story, and kind of taking it on so that you can understand it. That's one way. You can understand it by listening to your ears and through your ears and listen and kind of, thinking about it, or you can kind of energetically take it on and feel what it feels like to be that person in this circumstance. So if you are an empathizer, it's important to know that there has to be a different way of empathizing without taking things on, right? And that's kind of the work that I do. I empathize with people all day long. That's why I'm good at my work and I love my work. And, we get a lot of really good results between myself and my clients. But I have had to learn not to take on what they're experiencing. So it doesn't mean I'm not sensitive, doesn't mean I don't get it, doesn't mean I don't empathize. It's just I can't take it on because that's number one, it's not my job. Number two, it's not healthy for me. And number three, I don't need to. I can still feel what you're feeling through empathy in a different way. And so that's what I'm going to walk you through. We're going to do a short commercial break now, and I'm going to give you a way to kind of work with this way, with the sovereign space, and create a way that you can still feel everything that's going on in your life. You can empathize, you can be sensitive, but you will be protected. It's a nice guided visual to help you do that and to help you kind of move through your life in much more secure, much more understanding, but still feeling everything you want to feel and experiencing everything you want to experience. So, okay, let's do this commercial and then the guided visualization, and I'll see you on the other side.
Ben Hummel's writing comes from a deep well of experience, practice, and wisdom. The Genius Way teaches you the life skills you need to find your own unique genius. Summoning Genius helps readers to turn a midlife crisis into an opportunity for personal growth. You can find Ben's books on thegeniusway.com, Amazon, and most online booksellers.
Close your eyes and take a deep breath in and then deeply exhale. Continue to breathe deeply and slowly in and out. And see that with each exhale, the space directly outside of your body is being filled with your life energy. Every exhale expands the energetic territory around the outside of your body until it forms a circle that extends 5 feet in every direction. This is your sovereign space. Take a few moments to experience this space and notice any details about it that seem important, such as the color, temperature, or texture that it may have. This is where your energetic body resides and has its rightful boundary. You get to say what comes into this field and what is not allowed inside of it. This space is how you maintain your energetic, emotional, and mental safety at all times. It belongs to you, and it is you. You are meant to have it and to care for it. Now imagine that there are what appear to be nerve endings on the outside of this circle. These nerve endings are how you perceive the energy and feelings of others while safely inside your sovereign space. They always give you accurate information about the situation you're in or the person you're interacting with, and they allow you to remain safe and calm in your sovereign space. Remember that your sovereign space is always there as your rightful personal boundary and protection. Remember to use this potent imagery that you've just created to keep your sovereign space free from any type of energy that's not in harmony or alignment with you. And now, with this experience fully intact in your awareness, and when you're ready, open your eyes and come back into this room. And we're back. How was that visualization for you? Now, I want you to understand that that's one way of seeing how to keep yourself safe, how to see one way of seeing how to hold that sovereign space. And there are more. So in this last little segment here, I wanted to touch on the idea of friendship and personal boundaries. And so this is going to be a whole other episode, but I need to touch on it today because it's part of this personal boundary part. And I want to bring your attention to the idea of the friendship pyramid. And a lot of people use this image in different ways, but I'm going to talk about it in a slightly different way. So when you think about friends, it bewilders me how much people bring friendships into their therapy and into their genius coaching around, why is my friend not doing this or doing too much of this? Why does it hurt when my friend does this or whatever? So people don't realize that there are different levels of friendship, and each level has different corresponding things that we give and that we expect in return. Okay, so I want you to take a look at this image of the friendship pyramid. And you can see it all here, these 5 different levels. And each one of these levels has a corresponding action and emotional connection and expectations going both ways. Okay? Now, if you are on, say, like this acquaintance level, and then, let's say you think they're an acquaintance, but yet your friend thinks you are on the casual level, the things that you're going to be adding and depositing into the friendship are going to be different. And it's going to feel weird. And if somebody is at a higher level on this pyramid and you're on a lower level, or vice versa, the contributions to the friendship are going to feel uneven. They're going to feel out of balance. Okay? And they are out of balance. And so one person is going to end up feeling either taken advantage of or hurt or something, because what the other person is giving isn't on par with what the first person is giving. And so when you're having a friendship like that, it's important for you to kind of use this little diagram to realize, what level do I have this person on, and what level do they have me on? What kind of things do we exchange? What do we expect from each other? Because if they're not on par, somebody's going to end up getting hurt. And it's not so much the hurt, but it kind of turns into some pretty ugly things sometimes. And it's basically because people are expecting different things from each other, right? And usually the person who's giving more is expecting more, and it's not coming in, right? So take this for an example. So let's say I had a client one time who was always having problems with their friends, always having problems. And I was like, what's going on with you? Why do you keep having these disasters with your friends? And I said, describe to me what you do as a friend. And they say, well, I would I would go to their house and drop off gifts, or I would always be available to them, or I would, let's say, if they would call me up at 3:00 in the morning, I'd be happy to go over there and help them out. And I said, well, that's cool, but you're describing a best friend scenario, doing these three things. That's my best friend. That's on the top of the pyramid there. And so what do they do for you? I said, well, sometimes they don't even call me for a week, or, they're busy with other people or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, so they're on kind of the casual friend. They're not even on a close friend level with you. So you're here on the best friend level. They're on the casual friend. And you can see why you're being disappointed and hurt. So this person would go immediately to best friend status with everybody they met. Okay, and that is not going to work, right? So that, in a way, these personal boundaries are learning, okay, if I'm only getting this much back from them, if I'm only getting casual level back, I need to drop my behavior here down to that level so that it's on par and everything kind of seems fair, and I'm not getting myself hurt all the time. That's what's really important here, So learning that, again, we're going to get into that more on a different episode, but I just wanted to touch on that friendship pyramid, and see if you can look at some of your friendships and see if you guys are on the same level, because there's all those 5 different levels there. And so this goes right into another thing that happens when, let's say, you start setting more healthy personal boundaries, maybe even after this episode or after something else that you're working on, you realize I need better personal boundaries. Let's say you start setting them. Let's say you start holding those boundaries, except your friends, some of your friends, they don't like it. And they're not happy with it. And they're like, well, what are you doing? Why are you keeping me out? Why are you making a wall between you and me? And what happens a lot when people learn that their boundaries are not strong enough, they start setting them, is that the relationships that were created from you holding a low threshold of boundaries and somebody else having higher boundaries, the relationships may suffer. Okay? If your friendship can't hold you being healthy in the boundary range, holding healthy boundaries, your friendship may not last. Whether it's a relationship, whether it's a friendship, whatever it is, it may not be able to last when you start holding your personal boundaries. Because if it was set up and part of the agreement, the unspoken agreement of your relationship was, I won't hold these personal boundaries and I'll kind of give in to you and you're a more forceful thing and you kind of get your way and we'll have a relationship because of those dynamics. When you start holding your own, if that person isn't ready to change and kind of like let that happen, the relationship might suffer. And, sometimes this is when people actually break up with friends, when they start to get more healthy psychologically and start holding boundaries. And when that friend, whose friendship is conditional on them being weak and unboundaried, the person that starts creating their own personal boundaries might need to break up with that friend. But again, that's another episode, but this is right here, right in line with what we've been talking about, a few different aspects of personal boundaries and sovereign space. So let's do this. Let's take a short commercial break, and I'm going to come back with some more inspiration to send you on your way about sovereign space.
Hi, I'm Kelly Melissa Reinhart, host of Make Mental Health Matter. Join me on Mondays at 11 a.m. and Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on the Achieve TV network right here on E13 TV.
Creating sovereign space is a task that each one of us has to do on our own and as we see fit. This is our inner territory that we tend to and protect, and no one gets to decide what personal boundaries are appropriate for us to keep. The best boundaries are permeable, meaning they can let people in and the situations in that we have learned are trustworthy while keeping out anything that doesn't match or complement our personal vibration. So learn to protect and honor your sovereign space as the place where you actually live and experience your beautiful and rewarding life. Yes, and that's our show for this week. I hope you enjoyed everything you heard here and got some really good tools to take with you into your personal development journey. And your self-inquiry journal prompt for the week is this: where in my life do I need to create a stronger personal boundary? Okay. So until next week, when I see you again, I want to invite you to stay curious, be kind to yourself, and remember that your genius has something to say.
Thanks for watching The Genius Way Show with Ben Hummel. Make sure to visit thegeniusway.com for the resources you need to help you on your personal life journey. You can contact Ben at ben@thegeniusway.com. And you can follow The Genius Way with Ben Hummel on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Thanks for streaming The Genius Way Show with Ben Hummel.